judge. You have do.
I don't. Yeah, I think I can answer that question. That's it's good that you
What
say
do you
that,
think?
Simon. Yeah, so the interesting thing is that my husband would probably laugh right now if he was like, "Oh my God, she's going to be a mess with this question," because
It was not in the structure that
no,
I
no,
sent you,
I know.
but
That's okay. I'm pretty good at being flexible, but I am, because I've been a public servant my whole career, I am not someone who is I'm not going to say I don't know financially anything, but it's not a big priority in my life, number one. Number two, not a huge risk taker, me personally. So we do a lot of our legal research on Westlaw. And not too long ago, there is a component of Westlaw that is AI-assisted research. And I will tell you that it took me, going back to kind of the risk-taking or lack thereof in my life, I was of the mindset kind of like, old people are with technology in general, but is that, I'm like, I'm not going to use that for my research. But I have embraced AI-assisted research, legal research. The AI result ends up being, but that's something that I have been starting to utilize. I would say keep an open mind and an open heart and make sure that you're not, I think I walked through my life in younger years with tunnel vision, and I would say that is not going to serve you well. And when I had people who would talk to me, mentors, about maybe you should consider being a judge, at first I thought, what? I don't know about that. I really like trying cases. I like being a prosecutor. But then over time, I opened my mind and I opened my heart and started really observing the judiciary, and it's been the best thing I could have ever done.
thank you very much. So we are here on your podcast 305 Office. Thank you very much for being there, and don't be part of this club of the 90% of people that doesn't click the subscribe button and like this content. The show right now, where entrepreneurship 305 Office, we meet community, we have these business ideas collide with real world systems, and we sit down with people shaping Miami's future for every angle. I'm your host, Simon Davila, founder, entrepreneur, and someone who believes that shaping this building business also means building trust, structure, accountability in the community. So today we have a truly special guest. She is a respected figure in Miami-Dade's criminal justice system, and someone who understands the powerful connection between justice, opportunity, and community. Judge Andrea Wolfson, thank you very much, from the Circuit Criminal Division here in Miami. Judge Wolfson, thank you very much for joining us today in 305 Office.
Thank you, Simon. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, let's start with the big picture, Honorable Judge. Most people think of courtrooms only when there's something goes wrong. So, but justice, and being a lawyer myself in Venezuela, the justice is part of the infrastructure that lets entrepreneurs build. Could you explain what's the role in this in the business side, or on overseeing this the business and the entrepreneur, the typical situation, the role? What do you think is the role of the court system plays in shaping the city where business thrive? And do you really believe that's a link between fair justice and economic growth in neighborhoods?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, I think, Simon. And I do think that there's a correlation between our justice system and the economic growth in a particular municipality, community. I mean, Miami-Dade is full of several different municipalities, and when I say different, I really mean different, very diverse population throughout the county, and so there is a correlation. And it was interesting, I noticed when I was campaigning back in 2012 that people within the community, knew a whole lot more about their county or city commissioners or their state legislators and less about their judiciary. And I found that interesting because it's far more common for a regular person in our community to find themselves in court before a judge than it would really ever be that they would need to reach out to their commissioner or legislator. And so, I think that the more we educate our community about our judiciary and what the judicial system can do in terms of promoting economic growth, I think the better. I think the other issue is twofold. One, having clear and transparent judicial rulings so that people can understand what the laws are, and that of course affects a business. It affects people's property rights. Certainly regulating business correlates very clearly with what the law is. Fairness and equity within a community or within a particular business.
And actually,
yeah, go ahead.
And actually, Honorable, in this case, when there's many entrepreneurs, many people that is beginning a business, and they don't know that a business comes with many obligations. That's important to be mindful about that.
That's right. I mean, there are so many laws that regulate businesses. Certainly, permitting and things of that nature. If you're trying to have a building, a physical location where your business is going to take place, making sure that you understand how to register the business appropriately. Now, I have to give a caveat. Of course, I've been a public servant my entire legal career. I was with the state attorney's office and now as a member of the judiciary, and I myself have never run a business, but my husband is a personal injury attorney, and he is running a business, and I get to see from a very unique point of view. I mentioned the idea of building a physical building. He's in that process right now, and understanding what the laws and regulations are with respect to permitting and zoning, and things of that nature. And the good news is a lot of that information can really be found through the county and through different municipalities, and they try to make it as user friendly as possible. So I would encourage anybody who's watching and listening to make sure you avail yourself of that information.
For sure. And well, myself as a founder of multiple small businesses, from e-commerce to real estate, I've learned the hard way. So how's important to understand this legal system? Many new entrepreneurs, as we say, don't realize that, and some what will be some common legal situations you've seen that business owners, especially the new ones, fall into? Maybe there's like how those entrepreneurs prepare in the side of being prepared to avoid the criminal and civil exposure in this case, Honorable.
Yeah, so I think what we see a lot in the courts is contractual issues, perhaps. And so if you are new to a particular business or particular area, making sure that any contracts that are being entered into are clear and will ultimately be legally binding. Otherwise,
thinking about and reading so well.
That's right, exactly. I mean, there never could be a time where you just skim. Now, of course, if you have the opportunity to have an attorney assisting along the way, you're very lucky as a person who's trained in the law from Venezuela. But not everybody has that, and they're brilliant people, creating wonderful and amazing creative businesses, but aren't lawyers, and so making sure that you connect with a lawyer who can assist. There are also intellectual property issues employment law issues. So if you're going to have other people working for you, having a robust human resources knowledge base, keeping up with regulatory changes. I went, go back to also the permitting and zoning issues that you might have, depending upon the nature of the business. But those are some of the sort of the big ticket items. I think forming a business entity right out of the gate also can be a daunting task, and it comes with legal challenges as well.
Exactly. Well, and in my case, I'm also passionate on education and helping our at-risk youth see a future in tech and entrepreneurship in your courtroom. How often do you see young people maybe with potential who just took the wrong path?
All the time, literally all the time. Now, I don't do juvenile cases, so everyone that I have in front of me has either been direct filed into adult court, usually around 17, or they're 18 and above. That being said, the research tells us that the human brain really isn't developed until the age of 25. So I pretty much I'm getting older now, I'm 52, so anybody under 25 I look at as a member of our youth. And so we have tremendous opportunities for people who come in and they just make a mistake. The criminal justice system has a wide array of different types of offenders, and a lot of folks have just really made an error in judgment, and the hope is for a young person that error in judgment doesn't define who they are forevermore. So we have diversion programs both in the misdemeanor and the felony courts. They're called pretrial diversion or pretrial intervention. And what happens with first-time offenders, they go into a program, they complete some classes and or community service hours, and then at the end of 6 months to a year, their case would ultimately be dismissed by the state attorney's office. And later on, if that happens, they could move to expunge it from their records so that that's not something that would be haunting them through their college, through trying to open a business, and for the rest of their lives. We also have drug court and mental health courts, because we all know that mental health and substance abuse are a prevailing factor in criminality. And so those are rehabilitative courts to get people back on their feet again. We see people who come to us in those courts who, are like you and me, out living their lives, but they've kind of fallen into a bad path. And we want those people to get back on their feet again. And one of the newest rehabilitative courts that we have, and that's in our misdemeanors, is driver's license assistance court. We know that there's a lot of folks who are out there with suspended licenses for a variety of reasons, many of them financial in nature, that they can't pay parking tickets or court costs, and then the license gets suspended. So
yeah, I see
to help that.
many of Venezuelans, my fellow Venezuelans, that sometimes they say, no, but here the courts are very, but you see in the street, you just see people boom boom boom, and you say, but how they think it's gonna be no good when you are not aware of what you're doing when you're on the road.
Yeah, for sure. Take it from me. I have a 15-year-old right now that I'm trying to teach how to drive, and it's not easy.
No. Yeah, for sure. And also, yeah, I think the when you have a business in the community, it's important to be aware of that and become actually part of the solution. And part of the solution is actually education. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. And also, I think back about how you and I met, at
Exactly.
a Coral Gables Rotary Club meeting. And I think that's so important for people too. You think about education, people might say, oh, I don't really want to have to study anything. No, it's much more about kind of forming connections and that idea of networking, which, you know, you young people are really, really good at because it's really part of the fiber of who you are. And I think that's a huge, huge piece of advice that I would give to somebody who's starting any career, whether it's a business type career or a law career, medical career. Get out there in their community and find people, you know, who are going through similar things. And I think that's what was so beautiful about the Rotary Club.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were blessed to have you there and give us this master class. We thank you really, really very much. And so, in this case of for programs or initiatives that within the court system focus on second chances or rehabilitation, what are those options? In
Yeah,
this
so
case?
I mean, I basically kind of listed them a moment ago, and really the idea is to, you know, put people in a position where they can be successful in whatever they would like to do, you know, but for a mistake that they made in their lives. Those are for some of the you know, lower level type crimes. But then we also have some rehabilitative programs for really serious crimes that young people, again, bad judgment, don't have a fully formed frontal lobe of your brain yet. And we have a boot camp program within our corrections and rehabilitation. And it is very rigorous. It's difficult to get through, but it's a 3-phased program. One is sort of the physical, you know, you think of boot camp and it is every bit of what boot camp would be like in the military. And then the next phase is sort of transition the individuals back into the community, but there are opportunities for people to get their education, get certificates, get jobs, and put themselves in a position where the piece of paper where the criminal charges were filed is not who they are for the rest of their lives.
And for those who have this kind of, for those youth people that have this spark on the legal system and this kind of early interest, there's some kind of internship in the core system or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the courts, we have interns. I have one already who started usually the summertime or the, you know, the winter break. That's kind of when it's more active because the kids are out of school. We have interns from high school to undergraduate to law school here among the judiciary. We also have, excuse me, internships with our criminal justice partners. So that would be the state attorney's office. They have interns. They even have programs at the state and the public defender's office where young people in law school can become what's called a certified legal intern, and they can come and actually speak in court before they're even a lawyer, which is very, very exciting for the young people. So those are some tremendous opportunities that I would encourage if anybody's interested in. And like I said, a lot of the local schools are sending kids to us as early as freshman and sophomore year in high school.
That's great. That's great, and very interesting options for those who really have this spark and,
Yeah.
and want to do it. And we also like to highlight leadership, woman in justice and leadership. In this case, and human stories here. As a successful woman yourself in a demanding legal field, what has your journey been like?
That's a wonderful question, and it's something that I like to discuss. So I think I'm part of a generation. You know, I told you I'm 52. I've been practicing now in the criminal justice arena for almost 24 years, and I'm part of a generation where we were sort of stepping out of the real major concerns that we weren't able to compete head to head with men. You know, folks that were maybe 10, 12, 20 years older than me, women, had a very, very different challenge than I think what I've had facing me. I feel like there's a level of confidence that I've been able to compete head to head from the very moment that I got my law degree. And I think part of that has come with um, a bit of perspective. So I was not planning to become a lawyer or a judge. It was not even on my radar, other than my parents encouraging me to do that because I argued with them a lot, like most young people do. But so I went to undergraduate, and I have a degree in pre-medicine and a master's degree in biology. So my path in my mind back when I was a student was very, very different than where I ultimately ended up. But I think that the fact that I took a little bit of a detour and ended up where I am has given me some perspective and strength that has been a value to me to be able to compete, which being a trial lawyer, that's what you're doing. So I was an athlete growing up as well, so I think that part, that plays a role as well. But so I started out as a brand new assistant state attorney back in 2001, and you go through some training, but your training is really trial by fire. You get up there and you start arguing cases, and being prepared, of course, is the key. And so I did that job for almost 10 years before I was appointed to the county court bench, and I presided there for 8 years, and then now am in my 7th year in the circuit court. So it is challenging. I will say, as far as a leadership role, that I believe is where I see, and some of my cohorts, my dear friends who are women in leadership, have seen where there's more challenges for us as women leaders. And I think that's something that we're trying to work on and talk to the young people about how to navigate. There are a lot of instances that I see come up, and I think to myself, I wonder if they would have said it that way if I was a man. And so that's the head scratcher that I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, what will be an advice that you will give to young women or anyone looking to lead in law, business, or a public service in general?
I would say keep an open mind and an open heart, and make sure that you're not. I think I walked through my life in younger years with tunnel vision, and I would say that is not going to serve you well. You have to be open-minded, because if I wasn't open-minded or didn't have an open heart, I wouldn't have settled into a position that I feel is my more than a job, it's a calling. And when I had people who would talk to me, mentors, about, hey, maybe you should consider being a judge, at first I thought, what? I don't know about that. I really like trying cases. I like being a prosecutor. But then over time, I opened my mind and I opened my heart and started really observing the judiciary, and it's been the best thing I could have ever done. And again, I feel it's a calling. I think that I was put on this earth by God to do what I'm doing now, and I feel very fulfilled in that role.
That's great. That's great to hear that, Honorable. And the future of justice and entrepreneur in the case of our beautiful Miami. Well, I'm gonna ask a question I always ask in this podcast, because of the nature of the podcast. You answer if you want.
Okay.
Judge, do you have Bitcoin?
I don't. I think I can answer that question.
What
It's good that you
what
say
do you
that.
think?
Yeah, yeah. So the interesting thing is that my husband would probably laugh right now if he was like, "Oh my God, she's going to be a mess with this question," because I, again, back.
It was not in the structure that
No,
I
no,
sent you,
I know.
but
That's okay. I'm pretty good at being flexible, but I am, because I've been a public servant my whole career, I am not someone who is very, I'm not going to say I don't know financially anything, but it's not a big priority in my life, number one. Number two, not a huge risk taker, me personally, and so, you know, public service, there is a level of comfort, right? I'm doing my job, I'm following the law. There's not a whole lot, of risk necessarily involved, except for putting yourself out there to maybe be appointed to the bench or elevated to another position. So, that's about all I'm going to be able to say about that, I think, Simon. I
Yeah,
like that question,
that's
though.
okay. That's okay. And right now everything is AI related. Every entrepreneurs are just thinking about AI and creating about I am creating in AI because of AI, because I'm not a stack engineer, but I have a stack engineer, an app that is a stack engineer. So I tell the app what to do, and it does what I tell them. But in the case of justice, judge, I have seen several documentals and materials and videos and so and podcasts about this side of an algorithm to many systems. There are many systems right now that in the side of the protection, border protection. Some of them are there are algorithms in charge
Hmm.
for some decisions. What do you think in this era of AI? What do you think is the role of those algorithms and those new systems to shape the legal system right now?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I can tell you from personal experience. So, we do a lot of our legal research on Westlaw. And not too long ago, there is a component of Westlaw that is AI assisted research. And I will tell you that it took me going back to kind of the risk taking or lack thereof in my life. I was of the mindset, kind of like, old people are with technology in general, but is that I'm like, all right, I'm not going to use that for my research. But I have embraced AI assisted research, legal research, and it has been a game changer, especially because in trial courts where I preside, very often you have to find answers very quickly. Now, that being said, you still have to make sure that what comes up is valid and what the case would actually stand for, what the AI result ends up being. But that's something that I have been starting to utilize. I know a lot of lawyers have utilized ChatGPT. Now, it's risky. Once again, it's something like I tell the young students, and I know that that's becoming part of our education system as well. You have to be very, very careful, because then, you go into some sort of plagiarism world and things of that nature too. But so those are two areas that I see AI, coming into the forefront with the practice of law, and then technology in general, with e-filing and case management systems that courts have in order to digitize court records and things of that nature. So there is a huge shift, in that direction, and I think there's so much more to come, and it's exciting. It really is. I mean, look at what we've been able to do. Unfortunately, as a result of a pandemic, which was horrible, and people lost their lives, but we learned so much about the manner in which we conduct business within the courts, that we've been able to utilize virtual court hearings and things of that nature, where people from all over Miami-Dade County can make sure they have access to the courts without taking, a whole day off of work or getting childcare to be able to be in court for 5 minutes. So, sometimes we learn through very uncomfortable situations, but we've definitely been able to maximize the efficiency of the courts and the transparency of the courts with technology.
Yeah, and actually, to the point of technology is those blockchain contracts and that kind of it's kind of evolving
Yeah.
in all the system, and it's very useful in the case of contracts. I think what's just your perspective on that side of contracts for based on blockchain.
Yeah, I don't have a real expertise in that area, so I don't know if I could answer it directly. I definitely think that there is a place for that, in business and law. It's just, again, I go back to sort of the aging myself. I think that there is a real value into the human aspect of everything as well. There's a lot in the news about, AI judging. That won't even need me to be there, and I not only does that terrify me because I don't want to lose my job, but also I think that there is so much to be said about the human aspect of what we do as well.
Right. And from your seat, Judge, what does a healthier, more prosperous 305 Miami look like when justice and business work together? How do you see that picture?
Yeah, I think that again, going back to the idea of educating each other, collaborating with each other, I think we live in a competitive world. There's no doubt about that. But we live in a better world when we can work together and try to celebrate each other. I think that's something that's going to lift up Miami-Dade County. The divisiveness that we see so much in our daily lives, not respecting each other's opinions and demeaning someone else's opinion if it's contrary to the way you feel. Those are very basic principles. I know it sounds perhaps simplistic, but that's something that I try to get out to everyone. Is these are lessons that we learned well before we ever got a law degree or an MBA, or we're the CEO of a major company. Is just treating people with respect, having integrity, being honest, and of course that comports with following the law. That's the world in which I live.
Right. Judge Wolfson, this conversation has been powerful. So thank you so much for not only the work you do in the courtroom, but also for helping us understand how justice and business and everything coexist. If you want in Miami, and for everyone watching or listening in this podcast, if you're a founder, real estate investor, student, or someone, so we're here in this podcast. Thank you very much, Judge, for
Thank
being
you.
there. Last words.
Oh, well, Simon, it's just been a pleasure, and I would love to keep our relationship going, and I wish you all the best. You're doing a great service to the community as well.
Thank you very much, Judge. And until the next time we stay informed, thank you very much for being there. Thank you, Judge. And
Thank you.
have a wonderful day, okay?
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.